Whenever I meet anybody and they say, oh, I was born here, I say, honey, what's your last name? And if it's any of the names that I knew of, I say, oh, you're my kissing cousin.
I was born at the Halton Hospital, which was in the heart of downtown Sarasota. My father worked for the city. He was a city clerk for Sarasota.
My father died when I was, I think, in about the 5th grade. And my mother and my brother and I moved in with my mother's father.
A.B. Edwards and Frances Lowe Edwards. They became my brother and my legal guardians because our mother, it was during the wartime, she joined the Women's Air Corps, the WACs.
We moved in with them on Citrus Avenue in Sarasota.
That Sarasota still lives in the garden of my heart. But in a garden, there's always a process of renewal taking place. Sometimes I think about what Sarasota used to be, a tiny little fishing village. Everybody knew everybody. There weren't many cars. There weren't many streets. It was a quiet little town. Never did you ever have to lock your door. It isn't the buildings without the people there to give the spices, the seasoning, each one different. Sarasota wouldn't be today what Sarasota is today.
This is Skip Day at Sarasota Park. There's nothing like it. Oh, how I wish I could take everybody back to those days. Those days were like the Judy Garland movies, The Boy Next Door, and that simplicity of life. I look at our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren, and then I say, oh, how I wish you could know that time.
We have a legacy from being their grandchildren, but oh, so much more important than that is they have left a legacy to Sarasota. There will be so many living in Sarasota now that don't have any idea of what a very large part our grandfather played in bringing Sarasota into what it is now.
And you're from New College? My granddaddy was on the board of directors. And there's a plaque there, my granddaddy's name. And my granddaddy was born right down there on the bay. His father came down, wounded from the Civil War, to recuperate down here. And that's how they got established. This actually is history because you know where Myakka State Park is. You know the subdivision right before it, Myakka Valley. And Uncle owned property that backed up to Myakka State Park. He had 3,300 acres that went from the road way back and backed up to the Myakka Park. It was 3 miles from the road to their house. And it was a log cabin. The property was bought and made the subdivision, Myakka Valley, but it still has the name of the owner, Vanderwright, on some of the roads. My husband being a milkman and traveling and delivering milk to so many areas, he knew this piece of property was up for sale. And when I said, honey, we want to move, he said, get in the car. He drove me back roads and came out the driveway there.
I said, honey, this is it. We're home. Because it was exactly like Myakka State Park, which was so much a part of my heritage. Because Granddad was one of the few men that was influential in acquiring Myakka State Park, our new property. We did name it the trees because there were so many trees. Traditions are a security of knowing, and knowing is security.
We'd go to the beaches as a family outing on Sunday afternoons, and my husband just loves the beach, and he and our 4 daughters enjoyed it. Yes, I went, and we'd go out and cook breakfast on the beach and all of that. I do love gardening, which started as a child, loving flowers. And when we moved up here, then I had time for a garden. And the first plant I experienced working with was our oldest granddaughter, named after me, Jane. Our second plant was her sister, Olivia. The third plant was Amanda. And then came Brian and Shelley. And then came all these other plants that I could nurture and water and help take care of. And all the children became my garden. A person can be 60, 70, but still they're my children. Would you believe I planted every one of these flowers with a stencil? Was inspired to begin to create a much-needed butterfly, hummingbird, bee garden, and put several years into finding out what was needed to draw them through the reading and talking to people, and began planting until now we have the perfect garden out there that I don't have to tend to. Outside, I did the same thing. I would sit at a window and I would say, it needs a flower. If I'm going to look out that window, I have to see a flower. So out each window, you will be able to see a flower. There's lots of secrets that people don't know, and I want them to know. Granddad had these 2 paintings, and he asked my husband, Pete, you want to buy one of those? So Pete says, yeah, I'd like it. So we gave him $25 for it. Well, my dears, I'd like to introduce you to the Highwayman. This is Harold Newton's. He was considered the best of all of these. I find their lives and their stories very, very, very inspiring. They became known for their paintings, and someone put the name on them, the Highwayman, because they would put them in their trunks of their car and go down the highway selling them. And since the beginning of that with Harold Newton that went in Granddad's office, they have become very, very famous. These young boys, they did not want to be crop pickers. They wanted to have a life without doing what had always been done. And there was this white artist, Al Backus, and he took a shine to, in other words, he was nice to them. You know, back then you don't cross the color barrier at all. But Al Backus would receive them and treat them like people. So, for people that aren't artists, they can still create pictures of their own, and I wish more people knew this. You never know what makes an impression on each one of us, and what we value and what we don't value.
Hold on to traditions, but don't let traditions hold on to you.